All right, guys. So I said that I would give you a story time about my recent admission to the hospital. I'm going to give you the brief, the briefer version of it. But essentially, all of March, I was having really bad left upper quadrant, left flank pain, and I waited it out all throughout March to see if it was going to get better, but it eventually did not get better. It just continued to progress and get worse to the point to where I wasn't able to lay down, I wasn't able to sit upright, I wasn't able to walk or do any kind of physical activity without it being exacerbated. And and then a nausea started like building and building on top of that. And at that point, I was like, I'm gonna have to go to the ER. So went to the ER and sat in the waiting room for I got there at 1. I didn't get called back until like 4 to go to this very inhumane tiny room that was like this. And they had 9 chairs set up in the room with like those 3M stickable hooks above each of the chairs for to hang an IV bag. And then there was this tiny little window where behind the doctor's station where they could just look in and like watch you squirming in pain. And I was the only woman that was back there in this room with all these guys. And there was a guy that was in there like tweaking out, and these 2 old men who looked like they were about to fall out at any moment. Honestly, like it was the most off putting, barbaric situation I've ever seen in my entire life. And anyways, this one physician's assistant lady came in, got me out of the little weird ER room, and pulled me over to a little side chair to talk because HIPAA. And so essentially, I gave her the breakdown of what was going on with the left upper quadrant pain that now has like essentially radiated and settled into the left flank area, and the nausea that's going on. So she ordered a CT scan. The CT scan comes back and says that I have mild duodenal distension signifying SMA syndrome, and that my IUD was lower in position than what it's supposed to be, and that my cervix was enlarged. So she's like, okay, here's what came back. She tells me what's on the CT scan, and then she's like, since you've been dealing with this for a while and the pain hasn't gotten any better, it's probably not a bad idea to have you stay overnight in the hospital. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So then she left, and I thought like that was the, I thought that was gonna be the end of it, and then she was just gonna, I was just gonna go to a room. But then like an hour later, this other lady comes over, like heavily triggered, and she's like, um, I've been looking all over for you. And she's like, can you confirm your name? I give her my information, and whatnot. And she's like, so what's going on? And I'm confused as shit because who the hell are you and where did you come from? Like she didn't even introduce herself. She just went straight into the she she just went straight into the attack mode. And so like I'm confused. Again, I've not had anything to eat at this point all day, so my sugar is low, and I'm exhausted from crying. I'm in an excruciating amount of pain, and this random person has just spawned in front of me and is like drilling me about some shit. So again, I'm like, who are you? Like, what's going on? And she's like, I'm Doctor whatever whatever, and she was like, yes. She's like, I'm just here to try and see if you need to be admitted. And I was like, where is the other person that I was talking to? And she's like, I'm the doctor. And I was like, oh, oh, I see. It's gonna be one of those because the other lady that was super kind was just a physician assistant, and so I'm like telling her, and I was like, also, back in 2016, they found that I had Nutcracker syndrome. And she was like, well, he's like, who diagnosed you with Nutcracker syndrome? Who found that? Who said that? And I was like, it was here at this hospital in this emergency department that after doing a CT scan, they found it. And she was like, well, Nutcracker syndrome is just not, it's usually asymptomatic and people usually don't have any problems with it. And this, that, and the third. And that usually isn't an issue. And so, blah, blah, blah. That's not what it is. That's not what it is. And I was like, that, that guys, I see it's going to be I see. Okay. All right. Because like once you're able to, I've been in this game for a long time. I've been dealing with the healthcare industry since I came out the womb. I am no rookie to dealing with the gaslighting, with the manipulation, with the lies, with the deception, with the manipulation tactics, the trying to intimidate tactics, and right. So I know, right? I know the signs and symptoms. I know how to navigate, right? So I was like, right. Right. I see. And that's the game I played. I realized I'm gonna have to play stupid, right? Like I'm gonna have to play stupid with this. I'm gonna have to okay, cool, I got you. So then she's like, I was like, oh, okay, well, word. So what do you think is the issue? So like, right. So like now I'm like, mm-hmm, like, okay, let me work you, right? Let me work you. So what do you think is the issue? And she's like, well, we don't really know what the issue is. And at this point, it's just unspecified pain. So then like I brought up the CT scan thing and she's like, that wasn't a CT scan. That never happened. Like this is like kerosene on the fire, you know. You have to laugh about it because like I wish I was making this shit up, but this is literally what happened to me. And I'm sitting here watching this shit play out and I was like, oh man, this is good. It's gonna be one of those. I see. It was a full moon too, right? It was the 30th. The full moon was on the first. I was like, oh, it's gonna be one of those. I see. Anyways, so it was the 31st. Sorry, 31st. So I'm like, oh, okay. So then what is? And she's like, yeah. Like, anyways, we don't know. It's unspecified. It's unspecified pain. She's like, well, let me press on you. And so she came over and like aggressively was doing this shit. Literally like with this type of jabbing. So she like got me here, where it was hurting in my left flank area, and I jumped and like started crying because this shit hurt. It hurt. I was already in pain before she came over, and karate chopped me in the rib cage flank area, and then it didn't make it any better after she did. So she was like, oh wait, she's like, is that the thing? And at that moment I saw a light bulb come on above her head where she was like, oh shit, I know how I can spin this to deflect from what the actual issue and problem is, to lead them off the scent, off the trail, if you will, right? I've been in this shit a long time. So how I now that I've seen the light of how I can lead them off the scent, how I can lead them off the trail. She's like, it's your ribs. It's gotta be the ribs. That's your ribs. See, when I press right here, fam, when I'm pressing here, jab, 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 right? See how you in pain here? That's the ribs. That's the ribs, right? So the reason why, so here's what's happening. So the reason you was asking me like what I thought the pause was, and the reason is because you got something going on with these ribs right here, right? Like you might have a fractured rib. This might be a fractured rib. So we're going to have to do some imaging to further prove that it is indeed nothing but the ribs. You see what I'm trying to tell you? I'm trying to tell you. You didn't know what happened was you fractured a rib, right? The rib got fractured. Or you could have you got the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, right? So you just popped out one of the ribs and you just ain't know it. And see this right here, this pain here that you're feeling, that pain, that's the rib, right? You got something going on with the ribs. Yeah, it's the ribs right here. Now we're gonna get you in here and we're gonna do these CT scan. We're gonna do another CT scan to check the chest, because we need to just make sure that all the ribs up here above the chest, the breast area, are fine. And then we're gonna get you with this MRI of the thoracic spine to further prove and back, just in case happenstance it may miss, the upper. I'm gonna check the whole thoracic spine with the MRI, because that's how confident I am in this story that I'm kicking you right here, right? I need them to believe the story that I'm telling them over the story that you finna tell them, right? So I'm gonna allow you to stay, and and then we'll get you up there. But yeah, it's the ribs. It's the ribs. See, you just gotta trust me. That's what. And then also, so there's really nothing you can do about it if it's just dislocated thing. You know, you got to go to a chiropractor. The chiropractor gonna have to pop that back in place. You know, the chiropractor gonna have to pop it in place for you. It's gonna hurt. You're gonna take some Tylenol before you go to the chiropractor for them to do it. You know, to pop it in place. But you know, you can do some stretches. She was like showing me stretches to do, and then she was like, "But yeah, that's what it is." So then I get up to the hospital, get admitted, and the next day the hospital doctor comes in to see me and has this whole plan like, oh, she just got costochondritis, right? Go right now. Stay with me on what's happening here. Stay with me on what's happening in here, right? So you just got costochondritis. They say on the paperwork she's admitted for costochondritis. But again, had that have been the case, here's the flaw. Had that have been what I came in with, as many times I've been to the ER with actual chest pain, they get you in back quick to make sure that you're not dying. And also they do in triage, they do an EKG on you to make sure you're not having a heart attack or some sort of cardiac emergency. None of these things happened. Like I said, I sat out there for 3.5 hours and then got put in that tiny room with all those other people who got classified for pain. So that whole story was nullified and void over the fact of how I came into the emergency room, and none of the chest pain protocols were followed up for. So like, anyways, oh boy, the new hospitalist guy came in to see me, and he was like, "Oh, so the costochondritis," and I was like, "Let me stop you there. That never happened. That's not what I came in here for." And it was the scariest thing that I had ever had to do, was to speak my truth, because just 12 hours later, you know, I a doctor was playing in my face. A doctor was playing in my face, you know. So the wound was fresh. The wound was fresh. It was still actively bleeding when he came in, and I had to speak up and advocate for myself. Like, no, man, that's not what happened. Like, I came in because of this upper left quadrant pain and this flank pain, and the fact that I can't move without feeling like I'm being stabbed. I'm having throbbing, stabbing pain in my left flank. Help me, you know. And also this nausea. I feel like I'm gonna throw up constantly. Like I'm struggling over here. And he's like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, it said. I was like, okay, I understand what it says. And he's like, why did you have all these different MRIs? And I was like, I need you to look at the one MRI. I mean, the one CT scan that was ordered. And I said, do you see here where it says this about the SMA syndrome? And he was like, oh shit, like I didn't see that part. Like, I bet. With all the other imaging that was put forth to try and deflect from the original of what truly went on. Yeah, so anyway, so then he's like, well, that entire plan that I just mentioned to you has completely gone out the window, because that's not what it is. So then he starts the process of elimination to try and figure out, like, okay, what's going on here. So we did all these tests and workups for what's called SMA syndrome. You guys will have to Google that on your own time, but essentially it's like Nutcracker syndrome, which you'll also have to Google. Just pause it, Google it, and come back. And anyway, so I did the testing for that. The video will explain on my little behind the scenes daily vlog thing that I have in this playlist. You can watch that to get the details. But I had that done. That was brutal, because I was already feeling like I was going to throw up prior to just getting there. Anyway, so I wasn't able to eat anything because the nausea continuously got worse and worse and worse. They did end up confirming that, yeah, this is absolutely Nutcracker syndrome. And they said that a general surgeon had to come in and speak with me. And she was like, look, I'm going to keep it a buck 100 with you. She's like, I'm not qualified. This is above my pay grade to do. And it's above a lot of people's pay grades to do, because it's so rare, and it's a very highly specialized procedure and surgery that needs to take place to rectify this. So two of the options that she mentioned, that Nutcracker syndrome is rectified is by doing a renal auto transplant, which is essentially taking your kidney out and then removing it, repositioning it to a different spot so that there's not this compression um, of the valve, of the artery, whatever. And then there's like where they can move the vein that's being compressed. Regardless, both are pretty big, usually open surgeries, but I think there's some places, I know Cleveland Clinic does like a robotic surgery of it, but the reason why they usually do it open is so that if anything goes wrong, like with any of the arteries, it's easier for them to get to and stop any kind of bleeding and fix any kind of issues if it's just like already open, and they're not having to like try and maneuver through just tiny incisions or what have you. So yeah, so essentially that's what I was in the hospital for, and it just I couldn't eat. I couldn't eat for days, and then they found out, or they kind of came to the conclusion that like I had gastroparesis, and that whole part of the discovery is frustrating because again, back in 2014 when I first went up to Cleveland, you know, when my colon stopped working, I was like, is this gastroparesis? Because I was Googling, I was researching, and nobody ever wanted to call it that. Like they labeled me having slow transit motility and colonic inertia, right? Is like every word and label except for that. But, like I so now here we are, 10, 11, 12 years in the future dealing with essentially the same situation, like coming full circle, where it's like everything that I initially brought up and doctors just gaslit in my face and said, nah, that's not it. It's really, I have to laugh to keep from crying at this point, and I do cry. Like, don't get me wrong, like I do cry. My eyes are puffy because I've been crying, but it's there is very little care within the healthcare system, at least here in America. And it's really sad. I feel sad for past versions of myself that like I knew, and it was just ignored, dismissed, gaslit, or weaponized against me. uh, but the doctor really did, like, he believed me, and it was like such a cathartic feeling to like a stark contrast from just 12 hours prior, that doctor playing in my face, to like this one being like, oh, like there's actually something really bad going on. And he actually apologized. He's like, I want to apologize for my naivety and thinking of like what it was, because I had a whole different view prior to speaking with you. Which again, that's what that one doctor wanted. That one doctor wanted to lead them off the trail of what the actual issue was, to keep me in the loop of like what the hell's happening situation. But that's not what happened. I have to give props to the universe for allowing this to play out differently, and because I had the courage to speak up for myself, where 12 years ago I did not. And so that's it. That's what I got. That's what happened. And now I'm having to find a specialty hospital. I'm doing research right now, and then I'll have to reach out to insurance to find out where is or is not going to be covered for to have this procedure. But I probably won't have it for a little while. It's a big procedure. Not as big as the colon removal surgery, but maybe just right underneath it. Regardless, I need to be mentally, physically, emotionally prepared for it. Um, Not only that, like I have a vacation planned for the end of the year. So like I'm like, this is really kind of effing me up. But I also don't want to wait too long to where, like I've just now met my deductible and I don't want to wait until next year and now I got to start this whole deductible shit all over again. It's the healthcare system is so trash here in America, and I feel like these are things that people who have chronic illnesses should not have to think about. Like, oh, well, I gotta take in consideration the cost of this, and like, oh, my deductible, and then even once the deductible is met, like you still have like $8,000 out of pocket that you have to meet before they will cover things. Like it's just it's so much it's so much money. There's so many things that you know it's just really effed. It's really effed here. Anybody who lives abroad, let me know. Put a sister on to um, some different perspectives of what healthcare is like in your countries, and I'd like to hear some hope stories. I hope other countries are not, dealing with this when you have chronic illnesses where, you have to think about whether you're going to be in debt or if you're just going to suffer until you die. Like, and that's really the two options here in America, um, which sucks. Anyways, that's the story. Go through and watch the behind the scenes clips of my vlogs while I was in the hospital, and leave some comments and send me some notes of encouragement. If you have Nutcracker syndrome, if you have gastroparesis, that's what I was gonna say. They had me on this Reglan stuff, and the Reglan IV Reglan worked, but like it was giving me mad like muscle twitches, so I stopped that shit. I stopped taking it, and I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do from this point on with it. I did see that there was it was made mention to me about getting a gastric pacemaker for gastroparesis. But anyways, if you guys have any information on that or if you're living with that, let me know. I just narrowly escaped having to get an NJ tube, feeding tube placed because it'd been like 5 days and I hadn't eaten anything. Um, yeah, it just the whole situation is insane. So now I'm having to just eat really frequent, small meals. It's an adjustment of things, but I'd love to hear from other people who are going through similar situations. And yeah, I'll see you guys.